ESPN polled NFL execs, coaches, and scouts to determine the top 10 quarterbacks for 2025. Number one on the list, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Rounding out the top 5. No votes for Drake Maye in this poll. Mike Giardi, though, made his own list, and it looks a lot different. Josh Allen coming in at number 1. Patrick Mahomes all the way down at number 4. Meanwhile, Drake Maye cracking the top 20 at number 19, right ahead of the Broncos' Bo Nix. This is where we begin our deep dive. We welcome back Mike Giardi along with our Patriots insider Tom E. Curran and Giardi. I'm going to start with you. And of course, we have to start with Drake Maye because he is the Patriots quarterback. 1, why did you have him at number 19? And 2, ahead of Bo Nix? Why?
All right, we'll start with why he's 19, because we just don't have enough evidence. I mean, he made it through 11 games last year from start to finish, right? Won one of those. He's got 2 other wins to his credit, but those were Jacoby Brissett jobs that he got done after Drake Maye went down. There certainly have been great flashes, but it's a roller coaster, and you expect that with young players. I don't think they surrounded him as well as they needed to, and I think maybe we could kind of have a similar argument as we go into this year as well. But to me, there's enough there to believe that he's on the up, and there's a potential to climb up those rankings. And then when I look at someone like Bo Nix, I know Bo Nix, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, threw for like 4,000 yards. Like, that's an awesome year. Bo Nix physically is not capable of doing what Drake Maye does. Bo Nix had Sean Payton, who's one of the best offensive minds in football, crafting that for him. And I'll tell you this right now, the Bo Nix that you see is probably about as good as the Bo Nix is going to be over the course of his career. Maybe he becomes the 14th or 15th best quarterback. I think Drake has a much higher ceiling if he reaches it.
To me, I think it's fair. I do like your quibble, though, with Bo Nix underneath Drake Maye, because to me, based upon what we saw last year, he's a much better player. He's only left the field one time in the NFL, has Drake Maye, with more points than the other team. So to me, I look at that, but this is all based on potential, and I would think a mid-July list should, by all rights, look a lot different. And I would think that it would include Bo Nix being a little bit higher as well. It's a good team that he's with a terrific defense. And as Mike pointed out, Sean Payton, same thing, though, is going to happen, hopefully, for Drake Maye, in which he gets turbocharged in his second year with all the things that he knows, with the additions on the offensive line, and with Josh McDaniels tapping into and tailoring an offense around him. And there's going to be so much more organizational functionality, Trenni, I think, around him to make it that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that organizational functionality, and let's be honest, once you get past the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks, it's sort of a crapshoot as to who's really going to be good this year. So, Tom, do you think Drake Maye has a chance, if he has that organizational functionality and takes that year 2 leap, that he could be a top 10 type of quarterback by the end of the year?
Yes, I think he could. Do I think he will? No, I don't, because I still think overall this is a team that will at best be a middling team. Could be a little over 500, could be a smidge under 500. But in the end, he's going to have what a lot of sophomore quarterbacks have in the NFL, especially one who is as young as he is. He's going to spend some time figuring out this year what he can't do. And I remember Tom Brady in his entire career, his second season was the one that was most pockmarked by mistakes. He didn't really realize where he needed to miss. He didn't really realize the windows he couldn't throw into. And I think that's even going to be exacerbated with Drake Maye, because he has an arm that Tom really didn't have at that juncture. So there's going to be a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step back. I don't think it's going to be to the point where you're like, well, this kid's a bust, but you're going to sit there and say, well, shouldn't he be past that? And I would guess probably not in some instances.
Yeah, and it's like having another offensive coordinator. You're 2 in the league, second offensive coordinator. Go back to North Carolina, 2 offensive coordinators in his final 2 years at North Carolina. So there's a 4th different quote-unquote offense learned in 4 years. That takes time. And we're talking about, go through the entire spring without really Stephon Diggs, who's supposed to be your number 1, practicing with you, without Mac Hollins, who, look, you can say what you want about Mac Hollins. He's going to be part of the offense, someone that Josh believes in a little bit there. So, he didn't have those 2 guys. So now you're trying to learn with different people. Those people might not be in the field. I think it's going to take a little while for him to finally kind of put his foot on the gas and take off.
If we could agree, Trent, that he's in the top 15, I think that's a good jump. I think that's reasonable, especially with the team he's on.
Do you think that'll happen, Giardi? Do you think it's more likely he's within that top 10, top 15, or outside of the top 25 after year 2?
If he's outside the top 25, then something really went wrong, and they got to go over their evaluations on quarterbacks, because that would feel like, to me, that would feel like a pretty big miss for him to fall backwards that way. I think there's just too much there physically with him, and that if, as one defensive coordinator said, and I talked about this with Mike Holley last week, like, look, we gave him some problems that he couldn't solve. That's not uncommon for young quarterbacks. But now, okay, you've seen it. Now you've got to be able to react to it, and you have to be able to solve it quicker. If he does that, and I think having Josh McDaniels in his ear should help, then I really do feel like he's got to go forward. He's got to be in the top 15.
All right, let's go back to Mike Giardi's quarterback list, because the top of it's a little confusing, I think. But here's maybe why Patrick Mahomes might be ranked behind Allen, Lamar, and Burrow. He only had 28 total touchdowns last season. That is well below the other three. But Giardi, we're still talking about Patrick Mahomes here. Even in an off year, he led his team to the Super Bowl. Why do you have him ranked so low?
Everybody's cowardly. That ESPN poll, pure cowardly. They don't want to say that Patrick Mahomes hasn't played the best quarterback in the league. Wasn't last year. Actually wasn't the year before, and I know they won the year before. What Josh Allen did last year, he had basically the same tools at his disposal that Patrick Mahomes did. Josh did it better. Now, can they beat Kansas City? No, that's not Josh Allen's fault. If you go back and look at the Josh Allen losses to Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs in the playoffs, he's outperformed them in 4 of those 5 games. It's been the defense. It's been Sean McDermott. It's 13 seconds. There's been a lot of things that have happened there. I thought Josh was unbelievable last year. I think he's only going to get better now that he's had this crew minus Stephon Diggs with him. And then Lamar Jackson last year, if Lamar had beaten Josh Allen in the playoff game and had not thrown the interception in the first half and kind of had a very uneven first half, if he had beaten him, Lamar would have been number 1 on this list. 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions last year, rushed for 915 yards, like a spectacular year. He just has to, in the big moments, the year before they had Kansas City in the home game, he performed poorly in the home game. So, like, he has to get over that. And Burrow, quite frankly, like, their defense is a mess. I don't love the coach. T. Higgins doesn't play very often, and yet he still somehow almost got them in the postseason. Like, he carried that football team.
This is kind of the Brady 2019 situation, Trenni, from my viewpoint. We had a lot of people burying Brady, saying that he wasn't as good as he previously was. And then when he had pieces around him, he proved and became the MVP in the following year in 2020 in Tampa. And that's the same thing with Patrick Mahomes. To me, there's a reason that and I would put Josh Allen ahead of him, but I would not put Lamar Jackson ahead of him, because to me, the resume speaks for itself, as does the simple question of who would you rather have at quarterback if your season relied upon the result? Everything on the table. I'd take Patrick Mahomes. I might even take him over Josh Allen, but I think that's razor thin. To me, that's why I would quibble with it. Certainly over Joe Burrow.
My thing here, too, is, and people, like, he's still great. Like,
no doubt.
I mean,
this is a golden age of quarterbacks, trend right now.
100%. You give me any one of those 4 guys, and I feel real good about my chances to play deep into the season.
It's really trendy. This is a very interesting emergence of great quarterbacks that I really didn't see coming. And you include Jaden Daniels in that, too. And you can perhaps at one point include Drake Maye and Caleb Williams. Trenni, it's really interesting because in the past, for that 20-year period, it was Brady, it was Manning, it was Steve McNair early on, and Rodgers and Roethlisberger, but there was not this huge variation of how guys played the position and the different ways to skin a cat that you see between, Mahomes and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix and et cetera.
Obviously, what helps the quarterback, guys, are good receivers, and we do have some receiver talk for you. While the Commanders' Terry McLaurin is still waiting to be paid, the Jets breaking the bank for Garrett Wilson. Wilson and the Jets agreed to a 4-year, $130 million extension, $90 million of that guaranteed. The 24-year-old wideout, 101 catches for 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns last season. Marks the first time in NFL history that a receiver has received an average of over $31 million after playing only 3 seasons. And of course, Curran, the question then becomes, everyone's keeping an eye on Terry McLaurin because of his status down there in Washington. Does this change the scenario for him? Is he going to want to get this kind of money? Are the Commanders going to be willing to pay this? Basically, does this make it more or less likely that Terry McLaurin could come to the Patriots?
I would say it doesn't really change things because what Garrett Wilson is getting is what Garrett Wilson deserves, and that's basically exactly what I think Terry McLaurin should get. Now, you can say McLaurin's a little older, but he's only a little older. So to me, Terry McLaurin should be a $30 million a year wide receiver based upon the way things are growing. So I don't think it's going to change things too drastically with McLaurin and his ability to be traded. Eventually, they're going to have to pay the guy.
Yeah, that's right. I keep coming back to people. Do you think McLaurin? I'm like, no, because Washington has a rookie quarterback on that rookie deal. Like, look, do they want to extend him to the point where he's getting $90 million guaranteed at his age? Probably not. But you know what? You might just have to suck it up and do it because he is by far and away their best receiver. And if you take him off that roster, they're just not nearly as good of a football team. So you may have great faith in Jaden Daniels, but Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin were awesome together last year. You have to keep that rolling if you're Washington.